So we've completed the first colour on both prints, and now we're going to start cutting the second cut on the plates. I've made a tracing of the next layer, which is this, which is then it's been applied over the top of the plate, and with a carbon paper underneath, a red carbon paper, and you can see the marks on the plate, which I'm now going to start cutting. This one obviously is the plywood plate. An update about cutting this plate. I'm finding it's easier to cut with the V-gouge in the power grip and getting the marks that I want, rather than just the knife in the power grip and doing two bevel cuts. It's a lot cleaner cutting, and I'm not getting damage to the remainder of the plate by parts coming away which I don't want to. So I'm swapping over the cutting process from that. So it's really just like I would use on a lino, and I would just take the blade through the wood. It's quite sharp at the moment, so I'm happy just to work with it as it is. And it's making the bigger marks that I wanted it to make compared to the first marks that we had. So you can see I'm just getting through it really well. Getting deeper marks, so I'm going to have a larger amount of colour coming out on the print than the first one. So the first cut will show the white of the paper. This one will show the green of the first print. And I haven't quite decided what the next colour is going to be, so we'll see. So it's cutting away really nice now, so I'm happy to compromise my cut and achieve that. So I've finished cutting that plate now, and that's ready for printing. We'll see what it looks like when it prints. So now I'm starting cutting the vinyl. I'm using the Swiss lino cutting tools. It's a U-shaped gouge, and it's probably around about 3 mil. So just start very slowly cutting along the marks that I've made. Again, this is going to be a reduction lino print. Very simple, very easy to cut, and it won't take me long. So I've used the same colour for both types of prints. Very similar, different inks, but I'm trying to keep the colour the same, just to do a relative comparison between the two techniques. You can see it's quite easy to cut. I'm keeping my hand behind the blade all the time. If I feel the blade's becoming a little bit dull, rather than taking it to the stone, I'll use a leather strop, which is an old piece of leather belt, and a bit of honing wax. Just very gently just take the blade over it, keeping it at an angle of the blade, the bevel that it's cutting, and just rolling it round in my wrist as I'm cutting. That's it. Put that to one side and go back to the cutting. And instantly I can feel the difference. It just glides through the material. So I'll continue cutting this and then come back to you on completion of that stage. Completed the second reduction cut on both plates now, so I'm going to move on to printing, starting with the Japanese vinyl, and I've got some ink mixed up which I'm just going to roll onto the plate and take the first print. So getting an even coating over the roller. As before, just applying it, getting a good layer of ink. Not too heavy, but not too thin. This particular colour looks to be a transparent ink, which can be a little bit more difficult getting a decent covering over the plate. But I'll just take my time and work on the rolling out of the ink. Okay, we'll take a first impression of that, see what it looks like. Again with the Baron, firm pressure, circular motion. I'm just making sure I've got all the edges. Yeah, that's looking okay. You can usually tell through the back of the paper if it's not a heavy paper, if it's taken the ink okay, and I think that looks all right. So yeah, we've taken that off. That's reasonable, that's good to go. So we'll move on to one of the other ones now. So I'm going to move on to another one of these sample test prints, but it's got the first impression on it, and I'm just going to very loosely drop it into place. Let's lift that off and see what we've got. Yeah, that's okay. So now I'll move on to the the edition print, for want of a better word. The ones with the tabs on. I can see from the inking up that this ink is beginning to sit in some of the finer cut lines from the previous print, but I think at this stage it's not going to transfer onto the paper, onto the print. As I've said before, you've got to be careful around the areas where your roller has just caught the registration plate. You need to be careful and wipe those areas, otherwise it will transfer onto the print itself. So now taking one of the prints that we did before with the first impression on, position it in place with the tabs on the pins. Just going to drop it onto the plate. And let's have a look. I think I'm happy with that. Just taking the tabs off the pin, unclipping it, and then I'm going to lift it. Yeah, I'm happy with that. That's looking good. I'll continue now printing the other tabbed prints that I'm doing, and then we'll move on to the wood plate.